Hi, this is Dave Collins from Software Promotions. Welcome to the first part of Beat the AdWords System, 14 ways to cut your Google AdWords costs. Let's begin with the subject of conversion tracking. Google provides you with an almost overwhelming amount of information within your AdWords account, but the default information they provide is actually only part of the story. If you really want to handle an account properly, you need to develop two separate skill sets. First of all, being able to identify and ignore irrelevant information. Secondly, being able to hone in on the vital data and understand how to use it to your advantage. Now, if you're basing decisions solely on clicks, click-through rate and average position, you're almost certainly wasting money. If you want to look at all the facts, you need to be basing decisions on data from three different sources: your AdWords account, your server logs, and recorded conversions through conversion tracking. Conversion tracking is about making smarter decisions and improving your return on investment. You can use it to track sales, leads, sign-ups, page views, combinations of all these and a whole lot more. It's incredibly useful, but you do need to be aware of the limitations. Without getting too technical, conversion tracking is cookie-based. So if there are disconnects such as cookies being deleted, a purchase for instance more than 30 days after the ad was clicked, different systems being used for buying the product, and so on, this will mean that conversion tracking will never be 100% accurate. But it will naturally err on the side of caution. In other words, your conversion tracking data may underreport, but it'll never overreport. The bottom line is that you don't know how accurate it is, but it's better to have some information rather than no information. Ultimately, AdWords is a numbers and data game. The more information you have, the better informed your decisions. Next, we have the search query reports. This is one of the most useful of Google's reports for your search campaigns, and incredibly it's often unused in many of the accounts that I've been given access to. It's a standard AdWords report that shows you the keywords that actually trigger your ads, not just the exact keywords that you're already bidding on. If you've never used the search query reports, you should probably prepare to be surprised by what you see. Let's take a basic example. Let's say that you sell a PC email application, so quite logically you're bidding on email software, broad match. The problem is that your ads might be triggered by people searching for phrases such as free email software, email for Mac, online email and more, even though the software you're selling isn't free, isn't for the Mac and isn't a web-based solution. Worse still, some people may even see your ads searching for just software or accounting software. Now if they click, you're wasting money, and if they don't click, you're hurting your quality score. So either way, it's a really bad idea to not take into account this information. The report is very easy to work with right out of the bag using most of the defaults. Take a good period of time with a healthy amount of data, run the report, then use the irrelevant keywords as negatives, and expand on some of the more interesting variations. This is a theme that you're going to hear me refer to time and time again. Build on the strengths within your accounts and purge the weaknesses, the poor performers. Next, we have the placement performance reports. These are vital if you're working with the content network, and I'd even go as far as saying that you can't use the content network without the report, as it gives you a crucial insight into where your ads are being displayed. Now, the content network is a numbers game, and very different techniques are needed. What works in a search campaign will simply not work on the content network, and to make it work, it's all about filtering out traffic that doesn't produce the results. The problem is that for a campaign with reasonable levels of traffic, you get a lot of data, so don't try to understand it by viewing the data from within your account. Export the data into Excel and use filters and sorting to sift through it. In particular, you're looking for sites that are sending a lot of clicks but aren't converting, or a lot of impressions but very few clicks. Once you've identified them, add these domains to your campaign or ad group exclusion list, but be very careful about what you exclude. When you're excluding at campaign level, make sure that these domains perform poorly across the board and not just in a certain ad group. What works in one campaign may be disastrous in another and vice versa. So like all power tools, extreme caution is advised. But if you're careful, the placement performance report allows you to really tap into the content network more or less in absolute safety. Again, it's all about purging the weaknesses and building on the strengths. Next, we have the geographic performance reports. This is another incredibly useful report, and this one will show you where your ads are actually being displayed around the world. And chances are, if you're displaying ads to the whole world as a whole, or a lot of countries, you're probably in for quite a surprise. Now, depending on how location targeting has been set up within each campaign, you might even be able to see a complete breakdown of where your actual clicks are coming from. However, there's a catch. For reasons best known to themselves, Google provide the data grouped on a daily basis, rendering the default data as it stands more or less useless. Now, the only way to make sense of this information is with a pivot table to group all the data by country. If you don't know how to do this, you might be really surprised just how easy it is, and we'll discuss Excel a little bit later. Taming the geographic performance report will allow you to eliminate the countries that produce clicks but not conversions. And if you're targeting the world as a whole for any of your campaigns, then I very strongly recommend that you use this particular report as soon as we're finished here. But be warned, you may be a little shocked to see where your budget is being spent. Next, we have tapping into your competition. This one's a software promotions original. Now, if you're working with the content network, this technique allows you to piggyback right onto your competitors' work and their budgets. And to do so, you simply create ad groups that specifically target the name of your competitors' products. More often than not, you'll find that bidding on the names cost a lot less than obvious keywords such as general features and product benefits. Now, if you get this right, you might find your ads being displayed alongside your competitors' press releases, articles that perhaps they've been syndicating, product listings, and so on. In other words, it lets them do the hard work of paying for placement, and you simply tag onto the back of their efforts. In the process, you engage relatively cheap targeted traffic. There's nothing wrong with the technique, it's simply using AdWords as a competitive tool. Next, lower bids. Too many companies that we work with have placed far too much importance on a high average position for their ads, and we've actually worked with a number of individuals over the years who've been determined to stay in first place more or less at all costs. In the process, are quite happy to turn AdWords into a bidding war that simply wastes money, obviously to the delight of Google. My advice, don't reduce the power of AdWords to a bidding war. It's ineffective, it's costly, and it's futile. Worse still, our own research has proved time and time again that a high average position doesn't necessarily mean better performance. In fact, far from it. You might even find that an average position of 3 or 4 produces a better ROI than positions 1 and 2. It's also important to bear in mind that some ads are displayed above the regular search results. So if, hypothetically, 3 ads are displayed above the search results, then the 4th ad occupies the top of the right hand side. In that scenario, position 4 can actually work better than positions 1, 2 and 3. The problem is that the number of ads above the search end results varies over time, day of the week, region, country, language setting and so on. So what you see in your browser will definitely not be what everyone sees. Sometimes there'll be no ads above the regular search engine results at all. As in all things AdWords related, all you can do is to track, experiment and refine, but don't lose perspective by throwing money into first position. Next we have ad scheduling. This is another powerful tool, but it's often misused. So as a starting point, you need to check your data within your Google AdWords account and also your server logs or your analytics data. Here's what you're looking for. Every website and every Google AdWords account sees very clear 7-day patterns and trends, and there are no exceptions to this rule. When you dig through your data, you might well find, for example, that weekends are not only more expensive, but they also produce less conversions. If this is the case, you're paying more for less, which isn't a good approach. If this is what you see, turn off your weekend ads and put this budget to better use during the working week, but be very careful. Remember that no 2 accounts see the identical trends. As an example, consumer products may see weekends as their most effective time, but as a general rule, there is no general rule. Also, don't make the classic mistake of only displaying your ads during working hours, unless that's a proven most effective time to do so. Don't rule out anything before you try it, and don't rule out weekends if the return on investment is lower. Work the system. Track, experiment, and refine. Is this starting to sound familiar?